to ClearCast, the real estate fintech podcast. This is episode 15. I know, it's a lot. I'm Jeff Allen from Clear Capital, as always, joined by my friend and colleague, Kenon Chen. Kenon, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are we not canceled yet? This is incredible. I mean, really good shows have gotten canceled after like the first, after the pilot, and
Yeah,
somehow we're still doing this.
I think it's just been the complete outpouring of massive public support, really.
It's all those high ratings that we get.
Exactly. Exactly right. So we got an awesome episode coming up. We've got Brian Vieaux from FinLocker, the president and COO of FinLocker, joining us a little bit later. But we thought we'd get started with an interesting news story, an interesting new product that we wanted to give a little focus on. We've spent a lot of time on this podcast, understandably so, talking about the housing supply shortage that exists in the housing market right now. It is very real. The struggle is real. Especially if you're a real estate agent and you're trying to find listings, or even more so if you're a buyer and you're trying to find something to buy. There just really is not much available. And so we thought we'd highlight a company, a new product that's attacking the supply problem through a little bit of a different angle. Part of the shortage in supply is that there hasn't been as much new housing construction in the last decade as perhaps the market needed. And so there's a pretty cool new product that Kenon's found that is attacking this and hoping to help accelerate the new construction process. It's called Pebble. Sounds futuristic and exciting. Pebbles are just literally rocks. So I hope this is not one of those Silicon Valley startups that just took a rock and said, like, we've invented rocks. No, so Pebble is a low-cost way to manage parking in the development process. It's a little solar-powered device that can be placed down into parking spots, and it can then be used to track traffic within that parking spot, within that parking lot. How does this tie to housing? How is this important? Kenon, break down Pebble for us.
Well, yeah, we found this through Sidewalk Labs. Did a little introduction on it, and I guess it's super complicated, normally to get good parking information. Parking sensors are super expensive. You have to run a bunch of wires and things to to connect the sensors in the spaces to the central sort of reporting units. And so this company Pebble figured out how to have a completely wireless solution with these little 2.8-inch devices that you put down on the space through just an adhesive instead of a big huge install, and then you can mount the receivers, if you will, on nearby structures, light posts, what have you, and they're solar powered, and they also use a cellular signal. So so you're able to get up and running easily, and then this is great for cities, doing parking planning, but also for developers, whether they're operators of parking garages or new commercial spaces. And the reason why it's kind of cool for the idea of building more affordable housing or multi-units, some of the things that we really need to get housing inventory more available, or housing supply, I should say, increased, is that that this data gives you the idea of perhaps sharing spaces with businesses. If you have mixed use space, you can really track the patterns in that way. And what would often take a really long process of having someone to do a parking study, go out and do a manual check of these things. And I mean, it sounds like it's just painful. This lets you really understand traffic patterns and not overbuild spaces, but also not underbuild spaces. And then in the future, this could open up things like navigation opportunities where where cars understand, through their navigation what spaces might be available, how much time it might take to to add onto your trip based on availability of spaces. I guess like 30% of traffic in most cities is just people circling around trying to find parking spaces.
I would believe it, especially downtown or in dense cities like, New York or San Francisco. And it's those cities like New York and San Francisco where housing prices have gotten so exponentially high. And it's not just because a lot of people have moved there, it's because there really hasn't been a ton of new construction in these markets, especially San Francisco.
Yeah.
So how could Pebble help make that process more efficient for a big dense urban area like San Francisco?
Yeah. So again, for developers, it helps with with understanding your options to one, not overbuild spaces, right? So the article points out that a single parking space can cost 24 to $34,000 on average. So this is
Yikes.
not cheap, to overbuild. And then, and as I mentioned, it opens up the idea of shared parking, but also lets you get a parking study done a lot faster, which then means you can get your project approved faster, which means you can start building faster. So, yeah, super interesting kind of, you know, parallel set of technology that could help accelerate um, housing.
That's pretty cool. Um, I, I'm making fun of the name Pebble, but it is a cool name. It's easy to remember.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, good job,
yeah,
Pebble.
good job.
Good job, Pebble. Okay, so before we bring on Brian, I do see a note here that there's supposed to be a real estate joke of the pod. Is that going to be
Oh,
okay? Is that going to be all right?
is that is that like scheduled, or
It's scheduled. Yeah.
did I agree to that?
I don't know. But since it's on the schedule, we kind of just got to roll with it.
Okay, it's just gonna kind of happen. Yeah, got
Yes.
it.
As always, this is an original joke.
Oh,
So there's this neighborhood, right? You with me?
okay, I'm there now. I'm with you.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
there's a neighborhood.
Okay.
And it's a notable neighborhood. Every single house in this neighborhood is an absolute mansion. 5,000 square feet, pools, 4-car garages, beautiful lawns, and actually the best schools in the country are right here in this neighborhood. There are parks and golf courses everywhere, immense water fountains on every block in a grandiose style.
Mhm.
The streets are actually literally made of marble. There's
Oh.
marble streets, which would be expensive
Oh.
to construct, but they did it. And so when you're driving on marble.
And
And
how long have you lived there, Jeff?
since I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Um, so yeah, I mean it's a fancy place, right? Like this is as good as it gets. Pretty cool. But here's what's weird. There's something weird about this neighborhood. There's quite a few weird things about this neighborhood. First, on every block, every single Saturday, every house is having a yard sale. That's kind of weird. A yard sale. Are you familiar with yard sales? I know you're from the big bad city. Do you have those there? Do you know what it is?
I have heard of them.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, yard sale, people, it's like a garage sale, people put out old items, old clothes, old crap nobody cares about, right? So yeah, every house, yard sales, every Saturday. Really weird. What's even weirder is that the yard sales only offer cut off jean shorts, most commonly referred to as jorts. Are you familiar with jorts?
I was gonna take it back old school to like Daisy Dukes, but no, we're at jorts. Okay. Cool.
Jorts.
Jorts.
Yeah. That's all they're selling. It's jorts. what? It's just, that's not even the weirdest part yet. What's even weirder still is that the sales are only open for 1 hour every Saturday, like clockwork. Every house opens their yard sale at 3 p.m. and closes promptly at 4 p.m. So they're always shutting down at the same time at 4 p.m. That's pretty weird.
Yes.
And despite all these houses being mansions, the home prices are actually lower in this neighborhood than in every other neighborhood in the whole city. And the prices are dropping like crazy. That's weird.
Yeah, actually, that part makes sense.
So why are the house prices in this neighborhood so distressed?
I give up. You're gonna have to tell me.
Well, it should be obvious why the prices are down. It's all the short sales and foreclosures. Do you get it?
I do. I this one
You probably saw that one coming.
Yeah, no,
No?
I just couldn't believe that you would actually go there, but you did.
So when I was talking about jorts, were you already thinking of short sales?
Yeah, you kind of messed me up on the jorts, right? You know,
Aha!
if you just said it, I was like, how's it going to work in jorts? But then, right?
It was a deep fake.
It was.
When I said jorts. I don't know that that's technically what a deep fake is, but
Wait, why marble streets though?
Oh, it's just painting the picture that it is a nice place. I should have said gold.
Yeah, well, we should talk to Pebble and have them change their name to Marble. That's the more like that's like the high class version of the parking sensors. Yeah. We could start a competitor.
Enough of this Pebble crap. We're going upscale.
Oh, yeah, we have parking sensors only where there's a bunch of mansions. That's what we do.
Thank you as always for indulging the real estate joke of the pod.
It's what I get paid for. My contract specifies a special amount just for the jokes. Yeah.
Good. Because I'm actually paying in for the privilege of telling the jokes. I pay for it. Okay, we are joined now by Brian Vieaux, who is the president and COO of FinLocker. FinLocker is a white label financial well-being platform for consumers. He's been with FinLocker since 2019, before which he held a variety of senior officer roles with market-leading financial institutions, including 8 years with Flagstar, where he led the third-party origination business channels before joining FinLocker. Brian, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Kenon. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So let's start with FinLocker. Tell us in a little more detail. I mean, we talked about white labeled financial well-being platform. That's a new type of company. I don't think that company type exists yet, maybe. But tell us more about that and what value you guys are hoping to create for your customers.
I love it. So just you hit on the first term, white label, and I think most people understand what that is. But for those that don't, so we are a B2B2C platform. So our clients are financial institutions, mostly lenders today in the mortgage space. And these financial institutions, these lenders partner with FinLocker, and we provide them an app. We're essentially an app, a financial app for consumers. And this app really extends the engagement of the lender in a different way, right? You think about the lender's tech stack and their ecosystem, and they typically have a CRM, they typically have a point of sale, maybe a loan origination system, an LOS that's kind of attached. Some, but very few, actually have an engagement platform that's kind of around the consumer's personal financial life. And we're kind of the intersection of CRM, POS, and PFM, personal financial management platform. And so we kind of touch all those areas. We're not a CRM. We're not looking to take on the CRM business. There's great platforms out there. We're definitely not a POS. We connect well with all these pieces of technology to really kind of hyper activate the engagement that a lender can have with a consumer. And so what does that mean? In the mortgage space, I like to demonstrate or talk about our product in the lens of a use case, right? So or a persona. So I think everyone can understand a first-time home buyer in the real estate finance space. And so when you think about a first-time home buyer, they don't just wake up one day and go into a real estate office and see a lender to buy a home and get a mortgage. It's a process that they go through, and that process involves being financially prepared and being mentally and emotionally prepared to take on this big asset and this big liability, right? And so what FinLocker does is it gives the lenders now a tool to provide that first-time home buyer well up the funnel. So think of, before the point of thought, right? Before they're actually applying for a pre-approval, but way before that, give them a tool to help them start to get organized financially and prepared financially to be a responsible homeowner and mortgage borrower. And so that's a use case that we really get a lot of traction on, is helping lenders engage with prospective first-time home buyers months before they're actually ready. Traditionally, most lenders wouldn't see a first-time home buyer until they're referred to them, maybe by a realtor or maybe they come into their website, and by then they're well into that process, right? And they may end up with another brand name depending on what they're seeing out in the marketplace. And so we give lenders just a different way to engage those consumers, like I said, up the funnel. Happy to go deeper, but that's kind of, I think for this conversation, if we center around that first-time home buyer and just getting them prepared, that'll be a good way to kind of go deeper.
Interesting. So, I mean, you were at Flagstar doing origination. That's an interesting leap, right? To go from that side to then being a part of a fintech, sort of startup approach. But did that resonate with you, that value prop? Did you run into some of those problems at Flagstar, and that's what kind of led you to
yeah, I think
make that move?
I spent my time at Flagstar was managing the third-party origination channels. So that was wholesale, correspondent lending. And so part of my role there was to be, out in the market, visiting and meeting with clients and understanding their kind of business needs, their business challenges. And one of the things that I continued to see especially with independent mortgage bankers and some of the smaller lenders and even brokers, was this gap that was getting created with the kind of national, direct to consumer platforms who are spending a lot of money getting to the consumer first. And what I was watching, which was fascinating, and it's all kind of coming to light, but what I was watching was these, when you start to see a traditional mortgage company do things like set up a March Madness bracket contest.
Never heard of it.
To do a Super Bowl ads, et cetera. It really opened my eyes that the race to the consumer was getting well before the point of thought. I'll go back to that a couple times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in talking with our clients, this again, when I was at Flagstar, talking with clients, that was starting to become a challenge for them, because by the time they were starting to get consumers, home buyers into their sales funnel, they already had this kind of preconceived idea of what they should be getting in terms of a rate, a type of mortgage, et cetera, based on kind of some of this activity that was happening. And so I had known the FinLocker platform since they started, and I've always watched them with interest. The company started with a focus as a point solution in the digital asset verification space. So really just inside the mortgage process, helping processors and underwriters automate, asset calculations and asset verification. The company then kind of pivoted. We still do that. That's a byproduct of what we do, asset verification. It's just not our core focus. But the pivot was to this more holistic consumer financial experience. And that's kind of when a light bulb went off in my head that the FinLocker can be the mint, the Credit Karma, if you will, for independent mortgage bankers to go compete head to head with these direct to consumer brands and platforms. And so I got excited, invested in the company, started to learn a little bit more about the roadmap. And the reality of it was, and I think this is where you're getting at, the reality of it is I had been a career kind of corporate mortgage banking guy, if you will. I just kind of taken the safe, secure route and hadn't really made big bets on myself. And so I kind of reached a point in my life, eclipsed that the big 5-0 and did a little self-analysis and kind of looked at where I was. I basically said I can make a bet and it could fail and I could still come back into the industry and probably, get a job somewhere. And so I then kind of said, what do I want to make a bet on? It's not just myself. I'm not going to go start something. So FinLocker was the place. It still is something that I see we're on the cutting edge of something that's going to be, it's definitely needed and something that's going to be widely adapted. And so that was the horse I decided to ride and make this bet on. And it's been it's going to be 2 years this summer, which is crazy.
Well, that's an inspiring story. I think there's a lot of people who get farther along in their careers in any industry, and you reach a certain point where you think, okay, this is what I'm doing until I retire. Like I'm comfortable. Let's just stick this out, and to do it at that stage in your career, that's pretty rare. So definitely an inspiring story.
Yeah. So just so everyone's clear, there's a level of insanity to this. It's easy to look back now and look at it as an insane decision, but I just said I'm coming up on 2 years, so you guys know what the last 2 years of mortgage have been like, and so I arguably left the most lucrative 2-year stretch of mortgage to do this crazy fintech. But it's been a lot of fun. It's been learned a lot about myself, and it's not been easy. There's nothing easy about being at a startup, but it's very rewarding.
Yeah. So customer retention for the lender and competing with the big dogs, as you mentioned, is a top priority. We hear that a lot from lender customers that we speak with, but they're often using more traditional marketing campaigns to try and achieve that customer retention. So what would you say is kind of the big thing that makes FinLocker different and really unlocks new customer retention value for those customers?
Yeah, a great question. So I think the core of it is, and you hit on the head. There's great platforms, out in the space. There's the total experts of the world that just do a phenomenal job for lenders at engaging their customers and really driving kind of a deep engagement through their journey platform and leveraging information and data connected to the consumer through the lender's tech stack. What we don't see out there in the industry is a tool like FinLocker that literally gives the consumer, like I said, I'll go back and say it a couple times, that mint-like, that Credit Karma-like experience in my tech stack under my logo. Because this is crazy. I remember being in lender shops, again back at Flagstar, and talking about, what's your strategy when a consumer comes in and they're just not quite ready for a mortgage, whether it's due to credit, whether it's due to just too much debt and they need to kind of plan better and get a budget. And I remember hearing over and over again, well, we just tell them to go to Credit Karma and get their credit situated and come back. Or we send them, we tell them to go download Mint and set up budgets, get on a plan, and when they're financially ready, come back. Well, guess what? They ain't coming back. If you go to Karma, you can see that the consumers in Credit Karma, there's a marketplace on the other side of that platform where these customers have options, where lenders are in there, vying and bidding for that consumer. Mint now, is directly partnered with Rocket. And so, we have a product that can give that consumer those budgeting, financial tools, the credit tools to improve their credit and learn about different ways to improve their credit. But we do it inside the tech stack of the lender. And so when I give a consumer or invite them to my instance of FinLocker as a lender, they're in my space. They're seeing me as I'm the provider of that. It's branded my name. I can give it a product name if I want. And when they do become ready, when they've gotten to a place and the locker says, "Hey, great news, borrower, you're now mortgage ready," from their locker, they can click a button and start the mortgage application process. And that's where we connect the data to the lender's POS to really streamline that experience. So, and there's other programs and products out there, folks like Credit Evolve and My Credit Guy that do a great job engaging and helping customers, and they do partner. But we just take it a little bit different approach where we're leveraging tech. We're leveraging the mobile app platform that consumers are walking around with this thing all day long. And so, we just think this is a better solution versus sending your customer to Mint or Karma or some other app.
Are you working as well with, I would think that part of this is identifying folks that maybe are earlier on in their financial journey, and maybe they have, they do have a savings account or something where they've kind of started that process of maybe preparing for a down payment at some point, but they don't really know, what it really takes to really be ready, right? To own a home, to have a mortgage. And so I would think for banks, right, this would be a really interesting tool.
Yeah.
For a number of customers that just have their one account, their one product, whether it's a credit card or some sort of savings or checking account, to bring them along. How do you guys help with that? And also, like, how do you compete, I guess, against all the real estate tools that are out there that are also trying to do the same sort of thing?
Yeah, so let's start with the question around banks. So we definitely work with some banks and credit unions, and what we're finding, and so I talked earlier about we're focused in mortgage today, but our platform is really product agnostic. We just happen to be centered in mortgage. That's where we kind of, most of our team came out of mortgage, and we've solved for mortgage readiness, so to speak. But there's no reason why we can't solve for auto loan readiness or student loan readiness or other financial products. So when it comes to some of the bank clients we have, we are exploring with these partners, providing using all the same analytics that are behind personal budgeting and understanding credit, but being able to enable other products that a bank or credit union may offer beyond a traditional mortgage, like personal loan, credit card, auto loans, et cetera. What's interesting, and this was another aha moment I had while at Flagstar, kind of looking at FinLocker. We have a whole deep layer of education content that also kind of accompanies the experience for a consumer. Today, again, it's kind of heavily focused on home ownership and mortgage preparedness and readiness. So we go deep into the process and give the consumer via the app very digestible, short little YouTube-like education videos, right? What we found was that banks that distribute FinLocker to underserved segment of their client base or prospect base, or use it in communities that are in low to moderate income census tracts, as an example. Banks can actually earn Community Reinvestment Act credits, CRA credits, for using FinLocker as an innovative tool for promoting financial literacy, health, and well-being. And so we do have some banks that are actively engaged with us on deploying the locker in their local communities that they serve. And then they've partnered up with nonprofits, housing, counseling agencies, and advocacy groups to literally empower these nonprofits to use the locker when they're engaging with consumers. And so when you think about like a housing counselor today, kind of the old school method for a counselor to work with a prospective home buyer would be, hey, bring your shoebox full of receipts and statements in, and we'll create a budget, right?
Yeah.
Well, today it's as simple as link your checking account and any credit cards you have to our ABC Bank locker. We automate the budget process. We actually built a budget that mirrors the HUD approved housing counseling budget format. And so now the counselor can say, spend 20 minutes, link your accounts, and then we'll get on a Zoom call, because that's what we do today, post pandemic. We'll get on a Zoom call, we'll review your budget, make any adjustments. And what used to be a 30 to 45 minute kind of one-on-one session just to set up the budget can now be an actual counseling session that says, okay, I see your budget. Clearly, a few less stops at Starbucks is probably in order if you want to accelerate, your saving for a down payment. So we're seeing a lot of traction there. Yeah.
He's talking to you, Kenon. He's talking to you.
Dang it.
We're seeing traction there, and that's been a kind of an interesting place to kind of help the banks with serving those underserved consumers. There's another question you'd asked, Kenon, was identifying these consumers up the funnel, right? And so in a community, banks or even mortgage companies will routinely have events, first-time homebuyer events and other community type events, and that's a great place to get engaged up the funnel. But another interesting opportunity with FinLocker is we've partnered with TransUnion. Late last year, TransUnion was a lead investor in our Series A capital raise, and what TransUnion has the capability to do is to go out into their vast database where they know more about all of us than we know about ourselves, frankly, and use their algorithms and predictive analytics to identify likely first-time home buyers. So these aren't trigger leads. These aren't people that are getting their credit pulled for a pre-qual. These are consumers that may not even be buying for 6, 8, 12, 36 months down the road. They're predictive. They're out. There's patterns in this consumer's data set that say this consumer looks like these consumers who 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago bought a home. And so what we do now is we partner with TU, with TransUnion. TransUnion provides a lender access to this data, these leads, if you will, these predictive leads. And then FinLocker becomes a tool to groom and prepare those leads months, sometimes years ahead of when they're ready. And so when you think about helping a bank identify, prospective first-time home buyers in a certain, geography, we can really amplify and help their efforts in serving the underserved in a different, unique manner. It seemed like there was another question that I forgot to answer.
I super appreciate that approach though for underserved, communities. Obviously, closing the gap there in housing and home ownership is a big topic right now. A lot of folks are focused on it. So knowing that this technology was one of the paths to allow banks to better connect with those communities is pretty cool.
I think the other question was, how do we compete with the other tools, right? The other real estate tools, and you're probably talking about Zillow and platforms like that, right?
Sure. Well, I mean, there's a lot of folks that are vying for, those relationships, right, with potential home buyers and keeping those. I mean, it sounds like you guys are at least integrated or partnered up with tools. You don't have to own the whole thing. You could also work with others.
Oh yeah. We're, like I said, we're not a CRM. We're not a point of sale. We sit somewhere in the middle of all that. And then partner, we work with our clients to then integrate with the platforms that they feel like make sense for their tech stack. And there's another element that I didn't mention, or another feature, if you will, inside the locker that is a benefit for the user, the consumer, but also indirectly or directly, depending on how you look at it, a benefit for the lender. Inside the locker, we also enable real estate search. So think of that first-time home buyer using the locker 6-12 months up the funnel, setting budgets, understanding their credit, working on strategies to improve their credit. The app is kind of guiding them and helping them through that. We also have this mortgage readiness assessment that just perpetually analyzes all the data in real time, so the consumer kind of knows where they stand with credit, DTI, their assets for down payment. And when they get kind of the, all the green lights and they achieve readiness, they're actually then guided to search for their dream home, right? Based on your readiness, you can go search for properties, up to this amount. And from the app itself, we power a real estate search experience. So think about that. It's convenient for the consumer. Yep, I get all that. This is really, to me, a lender benefit, because now we've already talked about, keeping consumers out of Mint, keeping them out of Karma. Well, now in my app, maybe I keep them off of Zillow, Rocket Homes, Realtor.com, et cetera. And so we're really helping the lenders, once they've got the prospect or the lead engaged, giving them a set of tools to literally keep them insulated from those other platforms, inside their tech stack.
So stepping back a bit for kind of a closing question here, you obviously are intimately involved with FinLocker in technology that understands people's finances, and you also have a ton of experience in mortgage specifically. Yeah. So you are a great person to answer this question. We hear this term quite a bit, of the one-click mortgage, how that's coming, how there's going to be this, just seamless, completely frictionless mortgage process. Closing thoughts, do you think we will ever achieve that, and what will it take to get there?
Yeah, well, I think it depends on, how you define one click, right? There's
just one click. That's it.
Yeah, just one click. I think we're given the regulatory hurdles that we still have through the process, you can't really you're not going to ever have a one click, but I do believe we're to a place where, based on consumer permission data, which is kind of what we do at FinLocker, based on the combination of consumer contributed data and then consumer permission data, so direct source consumer permission data, we're definitely at a place where we can get to a one-click approval. I think we're there. I do think we're there for a sliver of the home buyers that are out there, right? I think the way I think about the consumer experience today, especially first-time home buyers, there's an expectation that I'm going to have a highly evolved technology experience as a first-time home buyer. That's, let's just think about the average age. That's what they expect. I want to do everything I can do without having to talk to anybody until I need to talk to somebody. And so we talk a lot about a high-tech, high-touch experience, especially for first-time home buyers. And even in that segment, there'll be a sliver that just goes all the way through without ever having to talk to anybody. But the vast majority, when you're talking about buying a home, largest asset in their life that they're owning at this point, getting a mortgage, the largest liability at this point in their life they're going to have. This is not something you can or really should do without talking to somebody. And so I happen to be a big believer that the loan officer, the local knowledge-based loan officer who's relationship focused, will always have a role in our business. Their role may change as technology evolves and as the process gets more automated, but really their role is to be that consultant, that professional, to guide them through, again, what's not an everyday transaction, and it is a major transaction. So I think the one click it will happen. It'll continue to evolve, but unless the regulatory environment changes, you're going to still have a one click, then wait 3 days, and then do another click, and then when you get your appraisal in, then you got another click, and then be ready to close, and then we got to click, and then we got to wait 3 days to close. All that stuff is going to continue to. You'll have one clicks along the way, but I think the point here is we're getting closer and closer to truly leveraging data versus documents.
You just had to throw an appraisal, huh?
Yeah.
Gosh.
It's not your fault.
Well, that's great, Brian. I appreciate the time and getting to know you a bit, and FinLocker, and thanks for coming on the show. Super insightful, and a cool piece of the puzzle.